Good evening, all. Respected Shri Durgesh Ji Kabra Ji, Central Council member and Chairman of Committee of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Court, and Shri Prakash Ji Sharma Ji, Central Council member and Vice Chairman of Committee of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Court, and Rakesh Sehgal Ji and Dilip Jagar Ji and other senior members of the profession and my dear members and friends. Please keep safe. It's a matter of extreme pleasure for all of us that we all are hale and hearty, and we are assembled here to invest our time in learning in developments of IBC code by the one and only and the so-called magical powers Shri Ashish Ji Makhija Sir Ji. He has always been an amazing operator and very helpful for us. And we are welcome Shri Durgesh Ji Kabra Ji, who is the chairman of this committee and Central Council member, to share her words for wisdom. Over to sir.
I think, Saket, I would request Rakesh Sehgal Ji before that to share a few words, and then Prakash Ji will address, and then I'll address.
Okay, sir.
Rakesh Sehgal Ji, please.
First, yeah, Rakesh Sehgal Ji.
You are on mute, Rakesh Ji.
CA Durgesh Kabra Ji, Chairman of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of ICAI. CA Prakash Sharma Ji, CA Prakash Sharma Ji, Vice Chairman of the Committee on Insolvency Bankruptcy Code. Speaker for today, CA Dilip Jagar Ji, Insolvency Professional. The Chairman and Vice Chairman of Kishangarh branch of CIRC of ICAI. CAS Rita, Secretary to the Committee. Good evening to all of you. I welcome the members and all the dignitaries on this panel to this virtual CPE meeting on recent developments in IBC and professional avenues for CAs under the IBC code organized by the ICAI Committee on Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. And it is very interesting to note that mid-tier branches like Kishangarh branches of CRC of ICAI, they have come forward to host this program. The comparatively newer legislations like IBC are getting the attention of mid-tier cities and small and medium practices. And I congratulate the Kishangarh branch for being the host of this program on IBC with the Institute's Central Committee. The code in last nearly 4.5 years of its existence has changed the landscape of corporate regulation and has been one of the most important catalysts in improving ease of doing business rankings for the country. With increase in number of cases before the NCLT corresponding to IBC code, it is definitely an area which members must acclimatize to and have practical and expert knowledge for making this as an area for professional work. One of the major recent developments under the code is introduction of pre-packs, which is much in line with the mechanism prevalent in certain mature economies for dealing with resolution plan of the stressed companies and their assets. Along with the pre-packs, other important proposals like special insolvency resolution for SMSEs, which is expected to be rolled out in the insolvency regime in the country. We are bound to see successful resolutions under IBC, especially in the MSME sector. Today's VCM will bring out various professional avenues for the chartered accountants under the code besides being insolvency professionals. Once again, I must thank the members who have joined for this program, as the Central Committee of the Institute and the Institute believes that with stagnation and saturation in the other areas of work, this area which is going to open up and knowledge building, through knowledge building which we are trying to give under this committee, the members can foray and try this as a professional avenue for all times to come. With this, may I request the chairman of the committee, C.A. Durgesh Kabraji, to share his perspective on the way how we are taking up this particular and important area for building capacity of the members. Over to you, C.A. Durgesh Kabraji.
Thank you, Rakesh Sehgalji. It's indeed a pleasure today to be a part of this virtual CP meeting, which is organized jointly with the Kishangarh branch by the Committee for Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of ICAI. And that too on a subject like what are the recent developments in IBC and overview of IBC and professional avenues for chartered accountants in the code. First of all, I must congratulate that Kishangarh branch and Saket Kalani and Mohit Jain for having this subject where the new area of the opportunities are being created for the chartered accountant fraternity. And friends, I also welcome my co-chairman of this committee, Prakash Sharma ji, who is going to address to all of you also. And he has put a lot of efforts into organizing these kind of seminars in the central region. And beside this, he is also the chairman of the banking insurance committee of ICAI, doing wonderful works for the benefit of the profession. As we all know, and as has been discussed by Rakesh Sehgalji, that the act which has come into the force, or the code which has come into the force since still in the evolving age. There is a new professional opportunities which has been opened for all of us, is known as the insolvency professional, who form a crucial pillar upon which rests the effective timely functioning of the entire mechanism of the insolvency resolution process. An insolvency professional will be appointed as an interim resolution professional, the liquidator, the bankruptcy trustee, and so on and so forth. Besides this, there are various other stages in the insolvency proceedings where also a chartered accountant can act and can provide the supporting services. He can provide the supporting services as the claim consultant. He can provide the supporting services as the resolution plan maker, and he can also do the activity of valuation for valuation as a registered valuer. There is an opportunity for a chartered accountant to conduct the transaction audit. There is opportunity for the chartered accountant to do the audit of receipt and payment in the liquidation process. There is an opportunity for the chartered accountant as forensic auditor in case of the resolution process. There is an opportunity for the chartered accountant to represent before NCLT and NCLAT, and there is an opportunity for the chartered accountant to represent as the lender. In detail, these opportunities will be discussed by the speaker today, Dilip Jagadji. As per the IBBI's data, as far as I know, and as on December 31st, 2020, out of total 3309 insolvency professional, around 177 IPs are, which are 54%, are the member of 5 IPs. Around 18% are the member of Company Secretary Institute. Around 180 IPs are the member, which is 5%, are the member of the Cost Accountants Institute. And 215 IPs which are 7%, are the members of the bar council, and 522 members, which are 16%, were the person having managerial experience. So this is what the data says, that the chartered accountants are leader into this profession, and chartered accountants are doing a lot of activity, doing wonderful work in resolving the insolvency in this country under this IB code. The IB code, as is evolving day in, day out, and there is various new amendments are coming. Very recently, the prepackaged insolvency resolution process has been announced for the micro and small medium enterprises, and that will benefit all the stressed small and medium enterprises, where the suspension of the insolvency and bankruptcy code was there. But since this has been added, the limit of 1 crore, which was raised from 1 lakh to 1 crore, here in this case, whoever is having the 10 lakhs and more as a debt pending can go for these kind of insolvency resolution plan, and this is going to help to the chartered accountant as well as to SME or MSME. I would say that when these kind of MSMEs are into the trouble, the chartered accountants can advise their client with respect to going into this particular prepackaged insolvency resolution process. So it helps them, because liabilities which are there, that will go, and it will be very easy to find out the partner, to find out the investor, in case where this process has been through the IBC code, through the prepackaged industry. So it is going to be great opportunities for the chartered accountants too. Friends, there are various other provisions which have been amended, and there are some new nuances which will be dealt by Dilipji. But I do not want to indulge myself into those activities, and I do not want to overtake those things. The overview and the new nuances will be dealt by Dilipji. But I would like to say that what the IBC committee is doing for all of you at the Institute of Chartered Accountant of India, that this year we have taken an initiative to update our all members. Maybe he is IP or not, or he is a chartered accountant, that he comes to know that what are the new case settled in the country. And to give that effect, we have started a new publication called IBC Case Laws Updates on monthly basis. We already issued April and March, and May will come soon. So this is a regular feature as a newsletter where the cases of the Supreme Court, High Court, NCLT, NCLT will be there, and you will come to know that what kind of judgment have come, and how it can help all the professional insolvency who are into the insolvency process. The committee is also organizing 3 days refresher course to facilitate members for preparation of IBBI's limited insolvency exam. We have completed one such course at Surat, and another course is in pipeline, and it is starting from 22nd at Jaipur with Jaipur branch, and we will be organizing one more at Belgaum very soon. So these are the various programs. We are also thinking of having the international conference this year, and we are also coming out with the various publications, and on 8 subject, dividing the whole IBC code into the parts, a 50 to 60 page book on the various chapters like moratorium, like claims, like resolution plan, like CIRP, like personal guarantors, do's and don'ts, prepackaged schemes. So these are going to be various subjects where the various publications are being brought down by this committee for the benefit of all the members. So you can go through those, you can read those publications, and can have the better knowledge and better understanding of that particular area of the IBC code. With this, I thank you and I thanks Saket Kalani, chairman of the Kishangarh branch, for having this webinar. And I must tell you that today, because of some unavoidable reason, this Ashish Makhija ji is not able to join, and we have requested Dilip Jagat ji to come and address all of us. He is also an avid speaker. He has spoken many times on the insolvency and bankruptcy. He was part of the international conference also of the Triple IPI as a speaker. And he is a person who is having the experience of this insolvency profession. The day when this insolvency profession came into the force in the country and handled various cases and a maximum to the tune of around a case of 900 plus crores of borrowing. So having the wide exposure, more than 12 cases he is handling. So I think he is the person who is going to guide about the overview of this and various opportunities available to all of Chartered Accountant fraternity. This is what the brief I just wanted to tell to you. And he is partner in BMKH Insolvency Resolution as well as BMKH and Company. So with this brief introduction of him, now I request my co-chairman Sri Prakash Sharma ji, who is from Jaipur and who was the first chairman of this committee when this has been formed in 2019 by the ICAI as a separate committee. Before this, it was a group. So I request Prakash Sharma ji to please address all of us.
Respected Chairman of Insolvency Committee, Durgesh Kabra ji, Rakesh Sehgal ji, Chairman of Kishangarh branch, Saket Kalani ji, Secretary of Kishangarh branch, Mohit Jain ji, Secretary to Insolvency Committee, Rita ji, today's speaker, Dilip ji, my seniors, my colleagues, and young friends. I welcome you all in this very important topic of insolvency organized by Kishangarh branch. Friends, really, I am very thankful to Kishangarh branch, even such a small branch, and who is organized on such a important topic, which our members are still feeling that not our core area. But the way things are changing, the way profession is changing, the way banking sector is changing, friends, this is going to be one of the very important topic, very important subject. Even if you will not like to go for this insolvency course for giving advice to our clients, we will have to have a basic knowledge of insolvency very well. So, from my side, I feel that this is very, very important field for all the practicing chartered accountants. And you may have noted that whenever I have organized 2-3 big national conferences in Jaipur, there was always one topic on insolvency, because what I feel this is one of the very new and important area for the all chartered accountants. Friends, even World Bank has increased our ease of doing business. Indian government, just because of one reason, that Indian government has taken and started this insolvency act in our country. So the time which used to take 4 to 5 years normal, which has to be completed in very 1 to 2 years, norms are different, but still things have changed very fast and cases are settled very fast. So all decision which has to be taken for the industry, for the creditors, for the debtors, they are taking very fast. Friends, just we are waiting for one thing, that the day government is going to open this sector for individual and firms, their cases also. Condition will be different. Insolvency professional will be less. but the cases will be so many. It will be very difficult to handle those cases because what our chairman has shared, we are hardly something 3,000 plus members who are insolvency profession in our country. So, according to me, future is very bright, and I request all of you, whoever wants to clear this course, Jaipur branch is
स्क्रीन शेयरिंग नहीं मिल रहा है आई एम नॉट एबल टू सर नहीं मिल रहा है
on May 22nd, 23rd, 24th. Whoever is interested to clear this exam, they are most welcome to attend this 3 days course in Jaipur branch that is on virtually. So sitting any place, you can attend that course. There is not any problem. Lastly, I will not take much of the time because we like to listen our speaker. Again, my sincere regards to Saket Kalani and Mohitji for organizing such a wonderful topic with wonderful speaker. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you a lot. I, CA Mohit Jain, Secretary of Kishangarh branch, welcomes you all for such a knowledgeable seminar today. And we all are very thankful to the Chairman Durgesh Kabra ji, Vice Chairman Prakash Sharma ji, and Rakesh Sehgal ji, the Director of the Directorate of Commerce, Corporate and Economic Laws of the Committee of IB Code ICAI to provide such an opportunity to the Kishangarh branch, such a small town it is, but to take this opportunity to host such a seminar on this grand level. I would like to express gratitude to all the chairmen, all the chief guests of today on the behalf of all management committee members and the members of Kishangarh branch of ICAI. As we all know that IBC has brought new opportunities and as well as challenges to our profession. We are very fortunate to have Dilip Jagat sir as our speaker for today, and without taking much time, I request Dilip Jagat sir to please start the session. And I again very thankful to all the chairmen and vice chairmen of this committee to provide this kind of opportunity to the Kishangarh branch, and we assure you that in upcoming days we will also plan for such more seminars and the courses and more registration to the courses of crash courses. To update you all, 31st May is the exam date for this IB code. So please get registered to the refresher course to be started on 22nd of May from Jaipur. Dilip Jagat sir, it's over to you. Please start the session without taking much time.
Yes.
Request you to please.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. I'm Dilip Jagat, and thank you for providing me this opportunity to present my presentation on opportunities in insolvency. Law which provide opportunities for chartered accountant to practice insolvency. I will be covering the other laws for removal of insolvency and removal of difficulties faced by companies, corporate and restructuring of companies. If you see the screen, the Banking Law Reform Committee in November 1995 says that the limited liability companies were there's a contract of equity and debt, and as long as debt levying obligation is fulfilled, owners, equity owners have the complete control, and creditors have no say in the business to run. But when the default takes place in payment of creditors, is supposed to the ownership is supposed to transfer to creditors, and the equity owners have no say. So means it is a what you call creditors in possession, and a kind of mode in insolvency and bankruptcy code. And this code was passed in record time. So November 4. Yeah, okay. So it's from background only. I think it is a starting point only. Ease of doing business. Ease of doing business is an initiative of World Bank that provides objective measure of business regulations and their enforcement across 190 countries. This is a ranking of India. It was in 17, it was out of 190, Indians ranking was 103. 17 it was 136, but in 18 it come to 103. So it based on the how much time it takes for what you call recovery or say liquidation of company or resolution of the debt. So it time in earlier it was 4.3 years, now they 2.6 years, and OECD other economic and cooperative development countries it was 1.7 years only. The World Bank uses 10 objectives, and on that basis now India has improved from 203 from 136. And this is the diagram gives basic description of evaluation of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of India. Friends, for removal of sickness of corporate sector, the initiative was made in the year 1981 when Tiwari Committee suggested Sikh Industries Act in 1985. It came into 95, and then in 1991 again SICA was not progressing further because companies, there was a clause called moratorium which is there in Insolvency Code at clause number 14, moratorium. Similar clause was there in SICA also, it was clause number 22. But friends, our corporate sector took advantage and the companies were remaining sick, means under the SICA Act for years. You can say the company used to be go to SICA for sick resolution, but they never came out. So the change which made in this Insolvency Act is said that this moratorium period is limited to 6 months, and this 6 month the company either has to be resolved or liquidated, which was not the case in SICA, and that's why SICA was not able to make further development. Friends, after SICA, section 1991 Narsian Committee formed, and they suggested recovery of debt due to Bank and Financial Companies Act 1993. So friends, under this DRTs where debt recovery tribunals were established. So for recovery of debt was special mechanism which says that only banks and other things, there was special mechanism, special courts were open, tribunals for dealing with the debts. So this was the basic ingredient of this act. Then 1998, again this act also was not going further, and the bad debts were not, banks and financial institutions were not able to resolve their problem of bad debts. And again DRT used to, then DRT, then there is a High Court, then Supreme Court. So again matter was dragged for years. So this code also, this act also did not be was not of much of help to bank and financial institution for removing bad debts. Again, in then 1998 Narsian Committee suggested SARFAESI Act 2002. Now again the salient feature of SARFAESI Act was that in case of bad loans, when the account becomes NPA, banks and financial institutions were free to recover the asset of the corporate debtor or company by sending their notice saying that you pay the amount of debt or amount of default within 60 days. If the amount is not paid within 60 days, then banks and financial institutions were at liberty to take possession of the asset of the company. Again, here this act was to some extent successful, but there was a famous case of Maradia, which said that Maradia Chemicals, initially entire amount was 75% of the, again one of the condition of the act was that you have to pay 75% of the default amount if you want to file appeal against the notice of SARFAESI. But Supreme Court diluted the provision under natural law that you cannot, the law cannot force anybody to take the benefit of law to pay the maximum amount at a particular point of time. Again, and this law was diluted, and again it was not helping the bad loans for to the banks to recovery of bad loans. Then 2014, Banking Law Reform Committee formed and they submitted their report in 2015, and Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016 was came into picture. Now, insolvency and bankruptcy ecosystem, objective and structure. Basic is preliminary. It says that till the time the corporate debtor is regular in payment to his debt, then till that time he can keep control over management can control the corporate debtor. But the day there is a default, then the control goes to creditors. Preliminary, objective structure, insolvency and bankruptcy, applicability of the act, and key definitions. The code gives more power to, as explained earlier, the code gives more powers to creditors. Alter priority of payment. Again, the code has altered the priority of payments. If you see that section 53 of the code describes waterfall mechanism by which amount is to be paid to the creditors in the defined sequence. Time value. Again, the basic motto of the code is to maximize the value of the corporate debtor and resolve the corporate debtor in time-bound manner, and unified code. So this is a unified code, and it takes care of itself. And section 238 of the code overrides any other provisions of the code till if those provisions are inconsistent with the provisions of the code. Now, salient features of the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code: exclusive jurisdiction to adjudicating authority. Here, sections the code has given exclusive jurisdiction to determine whether in the case of default, whether to admit the company for CIRP is given in NCLT. It is a summary. The code NCLT doesn't have to go to the detail whether the company is able to pay the debt or not. It has to see the two things. One, is there any default? Yes. Is there any dispute? If say there is no dispute and there is a default, the company is to be admitted to corporate insolvency resolution process. Friends, I forgot to mention very important things. One, when the code was started, the threshold limit for filing of the case was 1 lakh rupees. But because of the this corona pandemic, to avoid the MSME sector from the rigorousness of this IBC code, the limit was increased to 1 crore, and that limit is still there. Second thing, the code gave, and second thing, from 24th March 2020, for 1 year, the applicability of the code was suspended, saying that if any default is committed during this period, I am using the word during this period, such as 24th March 2020 for then up to say 23rd March 2021, for a period of 1 year, any default is committed, then also you cannot file any application with NCLT. If you want to file application with NCLT, then you have to take see the default of other period. Fine. Now this is exclusive jurisdiction. So here for default, for invoking insolvency provisions, adjudicating authority, that is NCLT in case of corporate debtor and DRT in case of individuals or non-corporate persons, will have exclusive jurisdiction in insolvency related matter. No injunction can be granted by any court, tribunal or authority in respect of action taken by adjudicating authority. Here there is one exception. In case of insolvency, anybody can go to High Court under section Article 226 of the Constitution of India. That is, there is a special provision under which one person can go to High Court. Otherwise, High Court will not entertain the provisions of the any application made under insolvency. Moving from erosion of net worth to payment default. As I told you, initially 1981 Sikh Industrial Companies Act, which was applicable from 1985, companies went to took shelter under that SICA, but not able to come out of SICA. So they were enjoying moratorium for years and years. So there were companies which were admitted to SICA in 1990, and till the time, say you can say SICA was repealed, those companies were under SICA only. So moving from erosion of net worth to payment of default. Again, one more differential is under SICA, that company were admitted under SICA if the net worth is eroded for more than 50%. But that is not the case under insolvency. A company made one default also, the company can be admitted to insolvency. The Sikh Industrial Companies Special Provision Act 1985 relied on erosion of net worth to determine sickness. The code prescribes payment default of more than 1 lakh. It is now increased to 1 crore to assess the insolvency. New mechanism allows early detection of insolvency trade. That's why we can maximize the value. And again, it is the responsibility of a resolution professional to keep the company as going concern. Lender can initiate the process even if the default is in respect of the debt of another lender. So in case of financial creditor, if the debt is committed, default is committed with respect to A bank, even B bank is there, then B bank also can file the insolvency proceedings. Who can file corporate insolvency resolution? Lenders, creditors, and corporate debtors, shareholders, management entity, this person. So lenders can file the insolvency. Lender can file insolvency application under section 7, and it is very simple. Lender has to just initiate, say that there is a default, and he can file the application. But in case of creditors, that is operational creditor, the process is slightly lengthy. He has to send for first notice of demand or invoice, and then he has to seek the response of the corporate debtor for a period of 10 days. If within the period of 10 days, the corporate debtor either do not pay, or he do not say that there is an existing dispute. Existing dispute means the dispute which is there before receiving of the notice from the creditor. Then the creditor, operational creditor, can file application with the NCLT. So applicable sections for filing of application for operational creditor are section 8 and 9. And corporate debtor himself, he can file application under section 10. Corporate shareholders, they can, if they feel that they are filing it difficult and they are defaulted to anybody, they can file the application under section 10. Then creditor in possession approach. The board of directors are suspended and creditor approved resolution professional is appointed to manage the company. Here, friend, once the company is admitted to corporate insolvency resolution process, the power of board of director is suspended, though they are directors of the company, but they are deprived of all their powers of functioning as a director. Even they are not signatory to the bank account. This is if a resolution professional has to take this fact in mind. Time-bound resolution process. The entire process should be completed in 180 days. Now it is extended 330 days. Next. So this is the basic framework of the code act. There is a IBBI board. There are different agencies and there are different professionals. So professionals are controlled by agency is controlled by board, and our entire framework is the act. And there is a adjudicating authority, NCLT authority, and DRT for individuals or non-corporate entities. And there is utility. Again, utility is a part of broader IBBI framework, which keeps record of all the defaults made by everybody in India, but it is still not very much in vogue, and still it is at nascent stage. Only one national stock exchange utility is functioning, but still it is not functioning to the. It is not active to the extent it is envisaged. Now, salient features of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board, IBBI is the what you call at the parent apex level. IBBI is the apex body governing the Insolvency Code. It will set up the necessary infrastructure and accreditates insolvency professional and information utilities. Below that, there is an Insolvency Professional Agency, Adjudicating Authority and Information Utilities, and Professional Agency is controlling insolvency professionals. So, friend, the opportunities we are looking at is insolvency professional, and we are governed by the insolvency professional agencies. As you all know, there are three professionals. One is chartered accountants, second is company secretary. So there are three institutes in India, and all three institutes have their insolvency professional agencies, and they are controlling, or you can say they are controlling the insolvency professionals. And Durgesh rightly said that chartered accountants are in majority and as the insolvency professionals. So our triple IPI is the largest body as a professional agency. Insolvency professional IPs are licensed professional registered with insolvency professional agencies who would act as resolution professional, liquidator, bankruptcy trustee, and authorized representative and in insolvency resolution process. Now, as I explained, insolvency professional agency is there are three agencies: triple ICAI. One is first, second is company secretary's IP agency, and third, management accountants IP agency. So it is keeping control on the development and control of the insolvency professional. Insolvency professional agencies would admit insolvency professionals as members. Currently, there are three IPs, and I given the name. And there are IP entities also, which is which is formed with the help of insolvency professionals. So the board felt that say for handling the assignment of insolvency resolution process, even once insolvency professional may not be competent, so they are allowed to form IP entities which will have all strength and partners or directors or shareholders with required resources to carry out insolvency resolution process of corporate debtor. Now, the adjudicating authority, AA would have exclusive jurisdiction to deal with the insolvency related matters. So, NCLT will be dealing with insolvency, and NCLT is also dealing with Companies Act, that is mergers, second thing, reduction of capital, then there is a complaint against the mismanagement of the company and all the matters. National Company Law Tribunal would be AA for corporate and LLP insolvency. Debt Recovery Tribunal will be AA for individual or partnership of the non-corporate entity. DRT will be the adjudicating authority. Information utilities, as I told you, and national only one information utility is functioning, but still it is at nascent stage. Now, structure of the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code. Friends, IB code is bifurcated into 5 parts: part 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And for all, there are different regulations. So I will first give the broad section-wise introduction. Part 1 consists of section 1 to 1, 2, and 3. It gives the applicability and definitions with respect to IB code. Part 2 deals with the basic heart or structure of the insolvency code, that is insolvency resolution and liquidation for corporate persons. It has 7 chapters. It has 7 chapters, and sections are section 4 to 77, and section 5 gives definition. Then, as part 2 is applicable only to corporate debtors, part 3 applicable to non-corporate entities, that is individuals and partnership and individual, and at present only individual and partnership firms. At present, this code is promulgated to the limited extent of if the individual partnership firms and partners are guarantors to any corporate entity, then this part is applicable. This again consists of 7 chapters, section 78 to 187, and section 79 gives definition. Part 4, it contains regulation for insolvency professional, agencies and information utilities. Again, this also contains 7 chapters. Section contains 188 to 233, section 189 contains definition. I forget to mention in part 2, there is pre-pack insolvency is recently added, and that is part of section 59A. Now, and then comes part 5, miscellaneous, so section 234 to 255, and there are 11 schedules, and section 238 is a non-obstant clause which overrides any other provisions of the other acts till that those provisions are not inconsistent with the provisions of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Elements enactments. So these are the amended by the 11th schedule. That means which are the section act which are amended. So right from Customs Act, Central Excise Act, Income Tax Act, Partnership Act, Recur Debt, Finance Act, Securitization Act, all Secondary Companies Act, Limited Liability Partnership Act, and even Companies Act is amended with promulgation of IB code, saying that what relevant provisions contained in those relevant acts will be henceforth controlled by IB code. And acts repealed by the code were applicable to individuals were presidency, individual presidency, insolvency code, and presidency township codes and presidency insolvency codes were repealed, which were applicable to individuals. Now, these are the milestones in the journey of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Bankruptcy Law Committee was formed in August 2014. Final report and draft bills submitted on 4th November 2015. Final draft presented in Parliament and then referred to the Joint Committee on December 15. Report of Joint Committee presented to Lok Sabha April 15. And Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code came into effect from 26th May 2016. So if we consider we are in May 21, hardly 5 years, and out of 5 years, 1 year and a half has gone into lockdown. Then also this act has made tremendous progress in recovery of bad debts. Responsibility for implementation given to MCA, and sections pertaining to IBBI powers to make regulations are notified 5th August. Board members appointed 1st October, and 15th December was the bankruptcy, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board agencies and Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India professional all regulations. These are the regulations provided, which is we can look at from the site of IBBI. So this IB code has made a lot of progress during this period. Now we come to basic definitions under the code, section 2. Provisions of this code shall apply to company incorporated under the Companies Act, any other company. When you talk about corporate persons or to whom it will be applied, then these are the definitions. Section 2A, Insolvency Code may apply to any company incorporated under the Companies Act, under the Provisions Act, any other company governed by the Special Act, being the force, any limited liability partnership, and such other body corporate under any law for the time being in force, as the central government may by notification specify in this behalf, and partnership firms and individuals in relation to their insolvency, liquidation, voluntary liquidation, not applicable. JK is also removed. So there is a section 3.6. Now, basic import. There are 4 sections which are the heart and core of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. These sections are section 3.6 claim, 3.10 creditor, 3.11 debt, and 3.12 default. So these are the 4 sections on which entire code is formed. First is claim. What is claim? Claim means a right to payment, whether or not such right is reduced to judgment, fixed, disputed, undisputed, legal, equitable, secured or unsecured, or right to pay remedy for breach of contract under any law for the time being in force if such breach gives rise to right to payment, whether or not such right is reduced to judgment, fixed, matured, unmatured, disputed, undisputed, secured or unsecured. So friends, if there is no claim, there is no creditor, and there is no creditor, there is no default. So this is the starting point of any insolvency process. There should be a claim. If there is no claim, then there is no, as I told you, no creditor. No creditor means no default, and the provisions the code will fall. 3.8 corporate debtor means person who is owes debt to any person. 3.10 creditor. Now it is again very important definition. Any person to whom debt is owed and includes financial creditor, operational creditor, a secure creditor, unsecured creditor, and decree holder. Friends, so creditor are of 5 types. That is a person to whom debt is owed means the person to whom amount is to be paid means he has to receive amount, and he is the person who is a creditor, and includes 5 types of creditors. Financial creditors. Financial creditor can be again further can be secured creditor. Further, if he has filed what you call suit in the court, then it can be decree holder also. So the financial creditor, again he can be secured creditor, again he can be decree holder. Similarly, operational creditor. Operational creditor, it is unsecured creditor. Generally, operational creditor is a supplier to the corporate debtor, and generally he is an unsecured creditor. But sales tax and other government department says that because sales tax has a peculiar nature, they are secure creditors. But various court now Supreme Court decision has said that government authorities are also operational creditor only, and section 31 of the act, which is very clear, says that they cannot be a part of, they are not secure creditors or financial creditors. 3.11 debt. Debt again is very important. Liability or obligation in respect of a claim. Again it talks about claim. So what is again liability and obligation in respect of what? In respect of claim which is due from any person, and includes financial debt and operational debt. So this is again very important definition of debt. What is debt? And 3.12 is default. So if there is no default, a company cannot go under insolvency and enter. So this is the last point of, or you can say starting point of entering into insolvency, default. Non-payment of debt. Again, debt is defined under section 3.11. When whole or any part of the installment of the amount of debt, again section 3, definition was 3.11, has become due and payable and is not paid by the debtor or the corporate debtor as the case may be. So when the amount, any part or whole or installment and payable, and if it is not paid, then there, and when there is a default, the provisions of the section 7 says that if it is a financial debt, just the financial creditor has to send a notice of default, and if the corporate debtor does not pay within 10 days, on the 11th day he can the prescribed form, and if the NCLT finds that there is no mistake, there is a default, and the name of RP is suggested and is complete in all respect, then application is admitted within 14 days. And similarly, in case of operational creditor, the operational creditor first has to send notice of demand or invoices for unpaid amount under section 8. And to that, the corporate debtor will reply that their amount is paid or there is a dispute. And if the corporate debtor, if the corporate debtor does not reply within 10 days, the 11th day, the operational creditor can file application with NCLT, and the application should enclose with the application following the things. One is the notice, invoices or notice of demand. Second, affidavit that there is no dispute and he has served the notice to the corporate debtor. In case of operational creditor, appointment of resolution professional along with the application is optional. He can submit the name, he can file the name of resolution professional, or NCLT will appoint resolution professional. And if the NCLT or adjudicating authority finds that there is the application is complete in all respect, and there is a default and there is no dispute, and RP and application is complete in all respect, the application is admitted under CIRP. Section 4 corporate debts minimum amount, this is 1 lakh 1 crore, and individual partnership of one, that is again this thing. Now section 5, again when we started with the basic framework of the code, we said that part 2 consists of insolvency resolution and liquidation of corporate persons. So again there is a definition: corporate applicant, 5.5, a corporate debtor, a member of the member, an individual who is in charge of the managing operations, or a person who has control and supervision over the finance affairs of the corporate debtor. He is the corporate applicant. 5.6 dispute. What is a dispute? Again, as we told, as we discussed earlier, for admission of application, 2 things are very important. First, yes, there is a default, and no, there is no dispute. If the dispute is there, the application is not admitted. So what is dispute? Includes a suit or arbitration proceedings relating to the existence of the amount of debt. Again, that we discussed under section 311. The quality of goods or services, this is applicable in case of operational creditor, and the breach of operations or warranty. Means any breach is there, again that is there is a dispute. Section 5.7 financial creditor, means who is the financial creditor? That is a definition: any person to whom financial debt is owed, and includes a person to whom such debt is legally assigned or transferred. Friends, here it is very important to mention that it is not only that first transaction of financial debt is covered. If there is assignment of financial debt, then also is covered. Means the assignee who has received the assignment, he also can file application. And second thing, similar case is operational creditor. So operational creditor and the debt assigned to operational creditor, he also can file application. Again, on second peculiar thing, financial debt will keep the characteristic of financial debt even if it is assigned to the new person, and operational debt will keep the characteristic if it is assigned to new person. Suppose operational debt is assigned to bank, then bank being a financial indulge in financial transaction, bank will not become financial creditor. It will still remain the operational creditor for the purpose of IB code. 5.13 insolvency resolution process. The amount of any interim finance, the cost incurred finance, we are talking about resolution process cost. Again, it is very important part of any, because this cost is to be paid first. And so what are the ingredients of insolvency resolution process cost? This is defined: the amount of any interim finance to any person acting as a resolution professional, any costs incurred by the resolution professional in running business of the corporate debtor as going concern, any costs incurred as at the expense of the government to facilitate the insolvency resolution process, and any other costs as may be specified by the board. Friends, here it's very important to know that when we start the insolvency process, we have to give advertisement, and advertisement is not the insolvency resolution process cost. And so any person who is starting the insolvency career as an insolvency professional, please keep in mind what you call advertisement cost is not defined here. That is to be when the advertisement is incurred for the first time for invitation of claim, the initial cost is to be borne by operational creditor or financial creditor who has what you call incurred the cost. 520 operational creditor definition, a person to whom operational debt is owed and includes any person to whom such debt has been legally assigned or transferred. As I told you, operational debt will always remain operational debt. An operational debt, a claim in respect of provisions of goods or services, including employment, or a debt in respect of the repayment of dues arising under any law for the time being enforced and payable to the central government, any state government, or any other local authority. In a simple parlance, the money, if it has got time value of money, it is a financial debt, and otherwise services and for other goods and services it is operational debt. Now, interim resolution professional, section 16, appointed interim resolution professional is appointed by National Company Law Tribunal, and functions of IRP, what we are discussing about is opportunity for chartered accountants, is here act as a IRP, and IRP functions up to for 1 month. That is, he is appointed by the adjudicating authority, that is NCLT, and he has to take functions is verification of accounts. He has to take control of the assets of the corporate debtor, collection of claims, appointment of valuers, determine financial position of debtors, and formation and conduct the meeting of the creditors. He has to conduct the first meeting. He has to constitute the committee of creditors. Basic function of interim resolution professional. So the role changes. Initially, when the insolvency professional is appointed by NCLT, he is interim resolution professional. His tenure is of 30 days, and in 30 days, he has to take control of the corporate debtor, give advertisement for the invitation of claims and public, that is called public announcement under section 15, and he has to constitute committee of creditors. And friends, committee of creditors is the main driving force in the insolvency professionals, and with the help of resolution professional and committee of creditors, entire corporate insolvency process is conducted. So he has to constitute committee of creditors, and first meeting of creditors is to be held within 30 days. So he has to call for the first meeting of committee of creditors, and in that meeting, committee will decide whether to continue IRP as RP to replace the IRP. That is to resolution professional. So section 16 talks insolvency IRP.
दिलीप जी इस कनेक्टिविटी
नेटवर्क इशू आ रहा है क्या?
हाँ सर, थोड़ा सा ऐसा ही लग रहा है वेदर कंडीशन की वजह से।
बॉम्बे और उधर सूरत साइड में।
हाँ सर, आज बहुत हिट किया होगा अभी 5 o'clock के आसपास। तो जयपुर में 3 days का कोर्स रहेगा 22, 23, 24?
हाँ, 3 days का कोर्स है ना, 3 full days का कोर्स, अच्छा कोर्स है जिनको एग्जाम पास करना।
आई एम डूइंग इट राइट नाउ फ्रॉम CARC ग्रुप।
अच्छा, वो भी अच्छा है।
Yes sir, 2 hours class is there on daily basis for 11 days refresher course. They are doing good. Yeah, Dilip Jagarji is back.
So,
yes sir, you are
हाँ दिलीप जी बोलिए।
sorry. There is because of this cyclone, my broadband is disconnected. So I am connecting from the mobile data from my phone. Sorry for inconvenience.
No, sir.
Okay, so section 17 talks about operations and management of the corporate debtor. That is the basic responsibility of the insolvency interim resolution professional. 18 is duties. 19 persons of the corporate debtor to extend cooperation to him, and 20 keep the corporate debtor as a going concern. And then constitution of committee of creditors, and section 22 is section 22 resolution professional. So if the committee of creditors decide, they can replace the interim resolution professional with new professional, and he has to preserve and protect, again same thing, but he has to go one step further. he has to take the entire process. He has to prepare information memorandum, valuations, and invite expression of interest, formulate the resolution plan, and then complete resolution of the company. If the resolution is not going through, then he has to file application under for liquidation of the corporate debtor. Again, this is the resolution plan is to be approved within 180 days, and he can seek extension of 90 days, so say maximum 180 plus 90 to 70 days, and the Act prescribes that the maximum period to complete insolvency resolution process is 330 days. So if it is not resolved within a period of 270 days, he has to file for the liquidation. Here the functions which we are talking about is then he has to call for the meeting of the committee of creditors. Duties are there. Then he has to file preferential applications. So again, that is a separate thing. In case of company, there are reasons for what you call company as is in this shape are many things. One is the diversion of fund by the promoters. So if that is the case, then resolution professional has to file get the accounts of the accounts forensic audit done by the firm of the company and arrive at following types of transactions. Section 43 talks about preferential transactions. Section 45 talks about avoidable transactions. Section 50 talks about externate credit transactions, and there is one broad category of section 66 that is called fraudulent transactions. So all these things the insolvency professional has to bear in mind. So I have covered functions of resolution professional. I am going to section liquidator. So if the company is not resolved under section 32, then liquidation order is passed under section 33 and liquidator is appointed under section 34. So what are the functions of liquidator? That is to maximize the value of the assets and most efficient manner and to disposal and creation of liquidation trust for distribution. So he has to take, say, once the company is admitted into liquidation, it is assumed that the company is not going concern. However, the remaining but the company, if it is functioning, that can be worked, and the company can be said that it is just functioning at nominal capital, whatever things, to maximize the value, maintain the relevant records, realize and distribute the assets. So realize and distribution of assets are under section 53. Institute or defend any suit, prosecution or other legal proceedings, civil or criminal, in the name of the behalf of the corporator. So any suits are pending. Actually, once the company is liquidated, liquidation order is passed, no suits can be filed against the debtor or company in liquidation, and that's the basic thing. So any suit is to be filed, then it is to be permission of NCLT is to be taken care of. One important thing I would like to mention here also, in the corporate insolvency resolution process, when the public announcement is made by the IRP, that is interim resolution professional, for inviting claims, the claims must be submitted within 14 days. But under corporate insolvency resolution process, there is a mechanism that claim can be submitted anytime before approval of the resolution plan. That is, you can submit the claim at 180 days also if the resolution plan is not approved. But in case of liquidation, the window of submitting claim is of 30 days. So once the liquidation order is passed, liquidator has to give public announcement, and people now here the creditors and equity shareholders, who are the persons who has claim against the company, are classified as stakeholders. So they have to submit their claim within 30 days, and liquidator has to prepare list of stakeholders, and this list of stakeholders is sacrosanct, and it cannot be modified by liquidator. If any new claim is there after period of the 30 days, then you have to file application with NCLT for modification of the claim. So this is differential with respect to submission of claims in CIRP and liquidation period. Now, corporate insolvency process, how it is diagrammatically presentation, then there is a default, file an application, approve of the reject application within 14 days, then by the adjudicating authority, appointment of interim resolution professional, appointment to be continued within 30 days by resolution professional. So if there is a default to pay the whole or any part of the installment, if amount is 1 crore, may increase to 1 crore rupees. At present, it is 1 crore. The application can be filed. As we discussed earlier, application can be filed by financial creditor, operational creditor, or corporate debtor, interim resolution professional. Again, we have detailed the functions of this thing. And in the application, financial creditor, it is compulsory to give the name of IRP, but operational creditor, it is optional. Then, so once the RP is appointed, he has to form the committee of creditors, appointment of resolution professional, confirmed by COC and the first meeting, and resolution plan proposed by creditor. It is 66% of the creditors should approve a resolution plan, then company can be resolved. And this period is of 180 days. Within 180 days, this process has to be completed, which can be extended beyond 90 days. So maximum 270 days, and that allows this process to be further extended up to 330 days. This is approved 66%, then it is application to A for approval of the resolution plan, and if it is not approved, then it goes for liquidation. Again, time process.
Dilip ji, I'm Prakash Sharma, this Vice Chairman. My request was, there are some questions which are very, very normal and very important for the new entrants in this line. So already I have received 14 questions. So if you allow me, can we start that questioning? So
yes, sir. I can just this final slide and we can ask the question, sir, because it is the ultimate summary of entire process.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what we discussed up till now, it is summarized in this flowchart. Say filing of an application. So it is before 14 days. Actually, NCLT says that the application is to be approved within 14 days. So 0 days is the admission application days, and immediately moratorium is declared. Moratorium is under section 14, which says that no proceedings can be initiated against the corporate debtor. Asset of the corporate debtor cannot be alienated. Final creditors cannot initiate securitization against the corporate debtor, and essential services to be provided to the corporate debtor for as a going concern. So within 14 days, A, to appoint interim resolution professional, that is covered. Public announcement is to be made. So within 3 days, he has to make public announcement. And within 14 days, creditor to submit their claims. So this is the period, and IRP to constitute COC and submit the report. So within 30 days from 40 days plus 14 days plus 30 days. So 44 days, IRT has to constitute and submit his report of constitution of committee of creditors. Within, he has to create, again, he has to call first meeting of creditors, and these are the periods in preparation of information memorandum, submission of plan, and COC's approval of the resolution plan before 180 days, and application for 180 days, he has to make application to NCLT for approval of the plan. I think this is the basic timeline, and to beginners to understand the thing. Thank you, Prakash ji. Now we can go for the questions.
Yes, Dilip ji. The first question is, explain in brief about the concept of group insolvency. I think they want to know the concept where you require a capital of 1 crore, worth of 1 crore, starting in a group.
No. Group insolvency is totally different footing. It is not on capital of 1 crore. I must differentiate both the things. See, as a financial creditor, it is saying that one or more person, financial creditor can file the application. So there, a financial creditor, you can file application consolidating by making 1 crore, which is not the application. It is not there.
Ritaji, are you there?
Yes,
Sir,
sir. I'm
what,
there.
Examination before passes 10 years in CA practice.
Yeah, one can take the IBBI limited insolvency examination before having 10 years of experience as chartered accountant, but to enroll oneself for insolvency professional with an insolvency professional agency, at that time the experience of 10 years is required. And one more important point is the validity of passing the exam is 12 months, sir. So, if you are not able to enroll yourself before 12 months after passing the exam, the validity goes. So, you can take the exam, but you cannot enroll yourself.
Here, I will like to share the very important my feeling with especially for practicing members. That even if you are not eligible to get registered yourself, if you have cleared your exam and then you will be in a position to advise your clients, because now lots of your clients will be coming to you for taking advice in this field. So that way, this chapter, this field is very, very important practically for all those persons who are in the practice. The third point is, what are the pre-pack plan in recent new amendments? Friends, let me introduce you in 1 minute. Madam Rita is herself is insolvency professional, and she is always update about all the other things. Yes, ma'am. So
Yeah.
for the third point, what are the pre-pack plan in recent new amendment?
Yeah. Sir, the pre-pack has been introduced in the country by the recently promulgated Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code Amendment Ordinance in the month of April. So, the amendment ordinance says that pre-packed insolvency resolution process will be available only for MSMEs, micro, small or micro enterprises. It is applicable only for that. And amendments have been brought out in the form of a new chapter has been introduced in the IBC to bring this pre-pack insolvency process in the country. I think Dilip sir is back again.
Yes, Dilip sir. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Pre-pack, I think.
Sorry. It is group insolvency is like that. Just practical example is Lavasa Corporation case in insolvency. Say there are 3 group companies. One company was holding land, second company was holding structure, and third company was service company, that is hospitality company, and providing services to the entire infrastructure. So it is impossible to resolve individually all companies. So the concept of group insolvencies comes into play when they enter to maximize the value of all the 3 companies taken together. So this is the concept of group insolvency, and which is not formulated officially here, but yes, it is implemented in 2-3 cases or more cases in India. One of the example I gave you is of Lavasa.
Yeah. Therefore, the next question is, what is the basic difference between SARFAESI and IBC?
Okay, SARFAESI gives right to the, in case of bad loan, SARFAESI gives right to the financial institutions. Again, using the word financial institution.
Again, network issues there.
yes, sir.
Dilip ji. Sir, we can't hear you.
Or can you hear me now?
Now
Yes.
we can hear you. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Now we can.
Yeah. SARFAESI is what you to
No, sir, you are not audible clearly.
Sir, we cannot hear you, sir. Voice is breaking. Rita ji.
hello. Am I audible?
Yes, Dilip ji. Dilip ji, we can't hear
Am I
you,
audible
sir.
now?
Yeah, yes, now you are audible.
Was just a minute.
you can close your video and just speak. So I think things will improve. Hello.
Yes, sure. Can we continue with this, Rita ma'am?
Yeah, Rita ji.
Yes, sir.
By the time Dilip joined, you can answer what is the basic difference in SURFACE and IBC.
Actually, we were talking about pre-pack, and the moment he came, I think we left it at that. So can I complete that one, sir?
Yes, complete pre-pack also.
Yeah. The pre-packaged insolvency resolution process shall be available only for micro, small or medium enterprises. And after this ordinance, the central government specifies 10 lakh rupees as the minimum amount of default for the matters related to the prepackaged insolvency resolution process under Chapter 3A of the Code. A new Chapter 3A of the Code has been introduced in the IBC specifically for this pre-packs. And the time limit for completion of pre-pack has been given as 120 days. As against, we know that 270, 330 days in CIRP. Here it is 120 days, sir.
So from which date it will be applicable?
From
And we are muted.
Hello.
hello.
Yes, Dilip.
Am I audible? Yeah, I'm joining.
Yes, Dilip ji.
So there is no presentation, so I think I can continue with my phone. So under SURFACE Act, the banks and financial institution can acquire the asset of the company which is defaulted by giving notice under section 13(2). Pay up within 30 days or their asset can be acquired. That is not the case that is not the case. Insolvency is totally different. Insolvency is on the going to the saying that you can resolve the company. That is the concept. This is the difference.
Yes. Sir, next question is from all places, from a small place where NCLT is not, how will we do practice as IBC?
Will you please repeat the question?
Sir, I can give answer for this. So now the distance is not an issue. Competition is not local or national. It is global now. And I know lots of professionals who are sitting in small places and giving services in different places. So if we have got knowledge, so distance and communication is not an issue. Presently, as it is, Dilip ji is sitting in Bombay. My secretary, Rita ma'am is sitting in Delhi. I am in Jaipur. And lots of members are from Kishangarh. I hope that some other members may also be joining. They must be listening to us. So distance and communication is not an issue for now in present circumstances. For be expert on any particular line, this is not an issue. The members who used to say that we are sitting in a small place, believe it, friends, that concept is going. Now, if you have got the expert knowledge, you will be recognized everywhere. And within 2 to 3 years, you will be seeing that our professional will be sitting in one place, will be giving professional services in another country. In fact, this insolvency professional code has been majorly taken away from the Australia. In Australia, it is more than 100 years old. So most of the senior officers from Australia had come to teach our officers of government who are in this particularly insolvency code office. So things will be very soon. Professionals from Australia will be practicing in India, and our professionals will be actually practicing in Australia and other countries also. So the things will be very different. The next question is, why is it called as code instead of act? Yes, Dilip ji.
Yeah, it is complete code in the sense that all measures are contained in it. You don't have to look at other act or other. So there are 11 schedules are there which are taking control of other act also. So it is a self-discipline. So if you want to do anything,
We can't hear you, sir. Rita ji,
I think Sehgal sir always had a point, difference between code and act. He always used to tell us.
you have to justify this thing and it can be done. So it is a complete code. So you
Sir,
can
sir,
do
we could not-
whatever,
we-
means
we-
all provisions, Companies Act, you can do restructuring and permission, other things are also available. So that's why it is called complete code in itself.
See, it is not only dealing with a particular legislation, but with an ecosystem. So,
Correct.
and it is relying on a bouquet of other laws as well. So, under this particular code, you are getting access and you are able to use the other legislations for having the process completed. So, in fact, if you see the Indian context, so there would be hardly few other examples which you can quote, like the Civil Procedure Code, Criminal Procedure Code, and then the current one. It's not a specific legislation. It's a lex specialist. It's a specialized law, but then it is relying as an ecosystem on the. It has interdependence and invoking sections of other legislations to complete the process. So it's a wholesome process within itself. The code provides access to other legislations to complete the resolution process as a part of the overall ecosystem.
Correct.
yes. The next question is, who can make an application for initiating pre-packed insolvency resolution process?
This
Dinesh ji, would you like to give answer?
person can. No.
Hello?
Sir, shall
Hello,
I?
sir.
See,
Rita ji, can you give answer?
Yes, sir. Sir, an application for initiating pre-packaged insolvency resolution process shall be approved by financial creditors representing not less than 66% in value of the financial debt to such creditors, and those financial creditors should not be related parties of corporate debtor, and also the members of the corporate debtor should have passed a special resolution, or at least 3/4 of the total number of partners, as the case may be, approving the filing of an application for initiating pre-pack, sir, as given in the IBC, sir, based on this recent amendment ordinance.
Yeah. There's another question, who can become the registered valuer? There is an exam like in this insolvency profession. There is another exam by insolvency board only. You have to clear that exam, and for that condition is not there that you should have experience of 10 years. Even 20 years person can also give that exam and clear that exam. So anyone who has to clear that exam, who will be clearing that exam, will be eligible for valuer. What should be a small practitioner do to get the assignment of insolvency case? See, after clearing your insolvency exam, you have to register yourself in different places, different banks, different financial institutions, and even insolvency. So from there, big give consultancy in a very big way. So that is what I feel very, very important field for we practicing chartered accountants. Explain.
There are other areas also.
Yeah,
there are forensic audit and also there, say, what you call, when many times companies are not what you call completed their accounts. So that work is also there. So many related work are there.
Yeah. Explain the role of forensic auditor under IBC.
Explain the role of forensic auditor under IBC. Okay. Now, say, as I covered three type of transactions, that is preferential transactions. Second is avoidable transactions.
Dilip ji, problem is your internet connection is not working.
Actually, really, I am using my mobile phone also, but today because of what you call cyclone, Bombay is network problem is there, and that was
I
warned
can
by
understand,
the
sir. I can understand.
so say in what you call, we have to find out the transactions, and there is a time limit. Say for when the promoter is involved, it is to be 2 years from the date of commencement of insolvency professional. So we are in 21. If the insolvency resolution is commenced today, then for promoter related entities items we can go up to back to 2 years, and for others we go to 1 year. So say we have to find out the actual cost whether there is a diversion of fund, whether there is a asset stripping, whether any amount of loan is taken with extraordinary credit rate, or say any other favor is given. So these are all to be found out by forensic auditor. And
Okay.
and one important thing is there. Here maximum work comes to chartered accountants from IBA. I would like to say that for this audit you need not have to be registered with IBA. If you have got competency of doing forensic audit, as a chartered accountant we can do this thing.
True.
So that is
True.
additional thing. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Next question is whether application for insolvency process of personal guarantors to corporate debtors initiated by the guarantor or the creditor can be withdrawn.
Process is same, because in what you call in corporate, there are two ways of withdrawal. One is say before initiation of the corporate insolvency, and before formation of the COC. That is within 30 days you can withdraw by settling with the party who has filed the application. And if it is not done, then if the COC is formed, then with the permission of 90% of the COC members, again we can withdraw the things.
Yes. Next question is suggest the roadmap for the professionals who are in job and want to pursue the journey of IP. Sir, most of the banks are hiring, all non-banking finance companies are hiring, even all those companies who are having litigation problems, litigation matters, they all are companies are particularly requiring, even lots of chartered accountant firms are, law firms are requiring hiring insolvency professional. So as like you have got other scope also, if you have got knowledge of this subject, this is not an issue. In fact, even 3-4 nationalized banks have asked for experience in this line, and they are directly hiring with interview only, not any other exam or anything. Next question is, by constantly ignoring the interests of operational creditors, are we spreading the problem of insolvency to a greater number of corporate entities, as they are subjected to much more stress?
No, actually, this is covered by, say, decision of SR, where LAT gave decision that financial creditor and operational creditor both are same. But Supreme Court reversed that decision, saying that no, financial creditors, they are different from operational creditors, and operational creditors are in touch with the company in day-to-day basis. Say they are supplying, say, a 100 rupees item, you can say over every month or every week. So they are basically very much aware about the functioning of the company. So they should take call accordingly. So companies going into liquidation or say insolvency, they are aware of the working of the company, because every time they are supplying the goods, they are in touch with the company. They are and they know the progress of the company. So yes, one way you can say is that, but everybody has to be very careful in dealing with the company.
The last question is, are the IBC provisions applicable to educational institutions, means private universities?
Generally, yes, it is applicable to education institutions only also, but here in India, there are two types of education. Say, one is hospital and second education. They are generally run by trust. If it is trust, then it is not applicable. But if it is a company, then Educomp is the biggest example. Educomp services it was under insolvency. So it is not sector;
Okay.
it is entity which is control the business. We have to go that way.
Right, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dilip ji. These are our questions. And still, anybody wants any clarification, they can send us the mail to our insolvency committee. We will give them reply on mail itself. There were little bit disturbances due to severe rains and cyclone in Bombay. So there were some disruptions in between. Again, my sincere thanks to Dilip ji, Rakesh Sehgal ji, Rita ji, and especially to our young chairman and secretary of Kishangarh branch for organizing such a important field, topic on such an important field, which our members are not realizing that how important this field is for particularly practicing chartered accountants. So thanks a lot, and I wish that in future also we'll be keeping this type of topics in different branches. Thanks a lot.
Thank you a lot, sir. Thank you all the speaker and guests. I especially present a warm gratitude to all the learned personality here. We are very pleasant and we are very fortunate to have such kind of session on our platform, our branch. I especially thank Sir Rakesh Sehgal ji, Sir Durgesh ji Kabra sir, Prakash Sharma sir, Dilip Jagat sir, S. Rita ma'am, and technical support from Greece sir. You are so kind to us and you are performing you have spread such a knowledge to all of us that definitely the members will be attracted to this course, and as such the knowledge will spread. The people will definitely want to join this course and fight the exams and definitely serve the organization. I again present a warm gratitude to all of you and all the viewers there. Thank you all of you, and please be safe, be healthy, take your forms, keep yourself safe from COVID, cyclone, and all the disasters outside the world. Please be at home, stay at home, and keep safe. Jai Hind, all of you. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you. Bye.